Hi, I'm John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to our webinar today. We're going to discuss, is a specialized master's degree right for you? We're doing this webinar sponsored by Duke University's Fuqua School of Business, and we have with us a brilliant professor. In fact, one of our 40 under 40 finalists one year. You're still under 40, aren't you, Jeremy?
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Oh, definitely. Quick point on that. The number one question I got when I won that was, wait, you're under 40? So,
So that's Jeremy Petranka. He's Assistant Dean of the two specialty master's programs at Duke, the Masters of Quantitative Management. Don't let that word quantitative scare you too much. It's essentially a degree in business analytics, and then the Masters in Management Studies. Now, one of the things we want to talk about is why specialty master's degrees in business have become so popular. Jeremy, what's your take on that?
so as at any point, by the way, feel free to jump in because I know what you've been seeing in this industry exactly matches what we've seen. And I think over the last 30 years, there's been this shift towards specialty masters that I think really when you start looking at why, there's two things that kind of jump out. The first is if you look at 30, 40 years ago in business, you saw a much more siloed business model that you were an engineer or you were in marketing. The conversations between those two would be very entertaining, not always productive. And I think you've been seeing over the last, especially 20 to 30 years, a realization that that doesn't work anymore. That if you think of something like a product manager role at Amazon, you can't just know one side or the other. You have to know both. And you're seeing more and more students want that, which means that when you're looking at a background, there isn't one background that fits. Instead, you start getting people with a deep background in really anything from liberal arts to engineering to anything else. And then if you can add to that the business piece, you suddenly have these multidimensional people that can really span a business. And that trend of being able to plunk into a multidisciplinary role, I think has changed. The other thing, and I know we've seen this at the MBA level, really across all levels, what a career looks like is different than it used to be. That a career used to look like, I will be with a company and they will develop me for 20, 30, 40 years. I will get a pension at the end of it, and that's a career. And as part of that, you saw MBAs being sponsored by firms. And in the last 20 years, that's gone away. That someone's career is possibly a menu, possibly some hard pivots in there, some soft pivots. What that means is that firms are less willing to invest on the front end on their talent, which means when you hit the ground, you'd better be ready to hit the ground running because your firm is going to expect you, on average, to leave at 3 to 5 years, which means you'd better have the skills when you get there. And so those two together starts really speaking for this need for this, really focused, intense, possibly cross-disciplinary role that the specialty masters play.
And most of the people in our audience, Jeremy, they're people who weren't around when there were the days when there were layers of management in every company, and literally people were sitting on the bench waiting for the promotion. And there were really robust training programs for newbies, and you were given 6 months to a year just to get comfortable in the company before you really had to contribute. Today, companies want to hire you and they want you to be jump-started and they want you to contribute, if not from day one, very quickly.
And I think sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You
I was going to say on the other side too, that used to be the ideal. No, I want to go to a large Fortune 500 company. I want them to develop me. And now, it kind of amazed me probably about 10 years ago was the first time, I mentioned something like that to a student and they looked at me like I was an alien. Like that just did not seem appealing. That the idea of you can really go different ways with your career is now the new norm.
Right. And so they expect you to show up and contribute. And one thing that specialty master's degrees really do is they immerse you in a subject matter in a way to allow that to happen, right? So whether it's a really specialized degree in something like business analytics or something like supply chain, or a more general degree, the management degree that you have, which basically gives you the vocabulary of business and the foundations of what business really is to allow you to contribute. It's all about getting you job ready in many ways, which is why these degrees are so popular, right?
No, that's right. And I think you really hit it that there's two types of these specialty masters. You have the depth and you have the breadth. That anytime you're talking about an analytics degree, operations, supply chain, what you're looking at is generally people that functionally know what they want to do. If you look at the masters in accounting, you have the same world where what you are developing is that skill set. So on day one, if you go work for the Big Four and you have that kind of accounting background, you'll be able to do your job. But the other one, which is where the masters in managements fall in, or really it's the breadth that it's what it's going to allow you is take really any kind of background, and you see more and more that where ideation comes from, where good ideas come from, is going to be those non-traditional background, traditional in the business sense. You take someone that maybe has a liberal arts degree or has a philosophy degree, and if you just throw them in a business scenario, it's not that they can't succeed, it's just the environment is so different. The jargon you don't know, how business is done you don't know. But it only takes about a year to learn that. And so we can take someone in the broad programs and not only immerse them in what that looks like, but also now give them the opportunity to find what they want to do in business. Where when you have the depth, it's really, this is what I want to do and I want to get better at it. But when you have the broad programs, it really is, look, you might not know what you want to do. We're going to help you get there and we're going to help you figure out what is out there.
Right. And I want to remind our audience that we're going to reserve like 10 or 15 minutes at the end to answer any questions you have. You can ask them at any given time, and we may, in fact, just plug them into our conversation if they are directly related to what we're talking about. I want to talk about first your Master's in Management Studies. Now, this is a degree that's long been very popular in Europe. Many fewer options in the United States. Duke has one. Explain what that degree is meant to do, who enrolls in that class, and what kind of career outcomes they can expect.
Yep. So the Master of Management Studies program, or MMS program, that's the broad program. So the target student is really all kinds of different backgrounds. In a lot of ways, the more diverse, the better. We really like having people from degrees you might not expect in a traditional business school. Give me a music major any day of the week. It's amazing what they bring when you start immersing them with people from the other backgrounds we have.
You can put on a band, can't you, in that class, probably?
That's exactly right. So take a background, maybe, and the types of students we get, there tends to be two types. Either students that realize late in the game that they want to be in a more traditional business world, but either in the industry of their undergrad degree, or possibly just using that as kind of underlying knowledge and really going to a new industry to focus in. But someone that figured out late in the game that they want to move into this world, or someone that legitimately doesn't know where they want to go.
So this is someone who studied Shakespeare or Plato and doesn't know the difference between return on equity and return on investment, right?
Exactly right. We will take them any day of the week. Once they have that realization that, I understand. I think one of the things you'll see in some of the more non-traditional backgrounds, especially in the US, is there can be a bias against the business world. And one of the things at Fuqua that we really believe in is that business can be a change agent, really any way you want it to be a change agent. So I think a lot of students, one of the things when I taught undergrad students back in the day, I remember a lot of students would come to me and say, what I want to do with my life is I want to make a difference. And so they would start talking about going into nonprofit. And I would stop them and I would say, now, what do you think will make the bigger difference? Being a volunteer for a few decades, or going and working for a Deloitte for many years, becoming a partner, and then starting a nonprofit. And there's this kind of realization that what you can do in the business world is just so varied and so vast. And so a lot of students come to that realization a little bit later. And so a program like,
Let me just kill one myth, because there are a lot of young people out there who think that everyone in business is greedy, who think that everyone in business is motivated by money, who everyone in business has sharp elbows. Let me just tell you out there, young people, some of the best friends you're going to make will be at business school. These are the people you want around your dinner table, you want to go drinking with, you want to have fun with, because they are an incredibly eclectic bunch, and they really do care about the world and making a difference. And that's what you're going to find in a good business program.
You are so right. I remember that. Honestly, I even had a little bit of this bias. So I am the other type of students you'll oftentimes see in these broad programs are highly technical students, say an engineer that realized, let's say 2 years in, they don't want to be an engineer, but they had no one else in their family to tell them what else they could do. And let's say that engineer, who is me, mentioned to his father, who's an engineer, hey, I don't want to do engineering. What should I do? And he said, you can do anything with an engineering degree.
Jeremy, he said that after he paid for your Virginia Tech engineering degree?
I paid for it.
Okay.
I should be clear. They did help, but I left with quite a bit of debt that I had to pay back. I just didn't even know what was out there. And it wasn't until my senior year that I realized that I realized where that was going. And so you start seeing one of the things that, when you say that business school and business in general isn't what people might expect, even, with that background and having been a consultant for years, even when I came to a business school, I had a little bit of bias. And I remember within the first 2 weeks coming home to my wife and saying, oh, wow, like it's real. At least at Fuqua, everything that I loved about, consulting, everything that I love about working in teams, that's a thing. And what I have realized now, and I've seen more and more, the sharp elbows in the business world, at some places you'll still see it, but more and more that'll actually work against you. And so finding a place that really, that really feels like home and feels collaborative, if that's what you lean towards, becomes really important. And you really do. We hear it all the time. You will leave feeling like you found a new family here.
Yeah. In your Master's in Management Studies, you bring in about 130 students a year. It's a 10-month program. It's what they call a pre-experience program, because you don't have to have work experience. I think the average age is 23. And there is actually, the average work experience is 1 year, but you don't have to have any work experience, or you can have a few years, right?
That's right. That average age is a little bit skewed. The modal student has no experience. So a majority of our students don't have any experience at all. We have designed the program with the expectation that you haven't had significant amounts of internships or actual work experience. So what that means for us is a few things. One is built throughout the program is we really try to get you in front of, whether it's companies that we have come in, whether it's speakers we have in class, we try to get you in front of people. With any good business school, you're going to have this really rich network. And our Career Management Center does an amazing job connecting our students with alumni. Just say, what do you do? What does that look like? But then another piece is that we have experiential opportunities within the program itself. So a fairly new,
Let me talk a little bit about experiential opportunities and why they're important, because some people may not even know what an experiential learning is. And, it's the opportunity to gain some real experience and therefore have something to talk about when you go on an interview. So in lieu of an internship, which is often used as a transition to a job, you have these opportunities where you're working, maybe it's a consulting project of one kind or another, and you'll fill us in on some of the kind of projects that you're doing in that program. But then when you're sitting down in an interview, you can say, I worked on this with XYZ, and this is what I did, and this was what the solution that we found to the challenge that we were confronting. And that makes you a far more interesting candidate for any job.
You absolutely nailed it. That what experience, for anyone that hasn't been in an experiential learning program, effectively you are working for a client, a real client. So it's a non-academic setting. We actually partner with clients in the area, in some cases global clients, to solve a particular business problem they have. The understanding is that they will work with our students. We will scope the projects to make sure it's appropriate for a 2-term project. And our students in MMS have not only a second-year MBA student helping to advise them, which is a great way to, again, to expand your network with some of our other programs and to use some of the experience they've had, but then also a faculty mentor. And so you're able to, in some ways get the experience of an internship, but it's a lot more than that, because number one, you can fail very safely. You have not only the second-year MBA student, but also the faculty mentor to bounce ideas off of. The other piece is that it is not uncommon for the types of projects our students work on to be beyond what they would work on in an internship. So to give you an example of one, without mentioning the company, but one of our teams, a local company, has a sales cycle. So how long it generally takes from first interaction with a potential customer to them buying, of 6 months, which was significantly longer than they wanted it to be. And so one of our teams was tasked with basically figure out how to make this shorter, which is a big, important question.
Wow.
For a sales team. And they actually were able to, through a lot of interviews with potential and existing customers, through looking at all the materials, through redesigning some of the materials, bring it down to what they think will be a 2-month sales cycle. And the client themselves has said they're going to incorporate a lot of their recommendations. You generally wouldn't see something like that in an internship because there's too much visibility to just give to an intern.
Yeah.
But in a case like this, they were able to. And so not only putting it on the resume, but really being able to talk about what that looks like. And I think, for students that haven't had that experience, something that still surprises us, eventually if you work enough, you just kind of get muscle memory on how to talk to clients, how to say no to clients, when a client asks for something, are they asking, are they demanding, how to push. Until you've done it, it's just a different world. And just how business communication works, even through, it's Outlook calendar for most things. It's not a WeChat request.
Right.
But where do you learn that except to be thrown in? And so having that experiential piece is a really important part of the program.
Now, Jeremy, what are some of the courses that you would take in the program?
So it's going to be, we look for breadth. So you're going to have multiple finance classes, multiple accounting classes, marketing classes, operations classes, strategy, econ, business communication. You're going to have twice everything at Fuqua. We think that's going to be a really important part. And those are going to be running just throughout. And you're going to have that variation throughout. It's not that you're going to have a finance term and an accounting term. You're going to see them throughout. You're going to see them reinforcing each other. And then the experiential piece occurs in the middle, in 2 of the middle terms that exist.
Right. That's great.
So this really does have a breadth to it that by the time you're done with it, you've seen all the different kind of functional areas inside of industry. And you will not only be able to, if you don't have much background, find what resonates with you, but then with everything else we do co-curricular and through our career staff, really push in a lot of different ways on getting to that spot and getting to where you want to be.
Right. Is there one-on-one coaching in that program?
Absolutely. That our career management center, Fuqua's kind of ethos when it comes to career management center is to help you understand what looking for a job looks like for the rest of your career. That when you're looking for a transition at any point, what that normally looks like is a lot of coffees with a lot of people, a lot of coffees, you figuring out what's out there, what resonates with you and why it resonates with you. That we strongly believe in kind of me individually, one of my values, I don't want students to just get a job to get a job. And I think one of the things you see with a lot of undergrads who make a jump without really knowing what they want is, they got a job and they think that's the end of the story. And unfortunately, if you're in a job that doesn't fulfill you, you'll very quickly see in 2 years, and that's when you do start seeing it, people realizing they need to pivot.
It's also hard to do a good job when you're not interested or passionate about what you're doing.
It is very difficult to do a good job. And so we really...
one of the things about the program, besides learning the language of business, you're gonna learn the basics of finance, strategy, operations, marketing. So, and you may gravitate to one of those fields because of those experiences, which is a really helpful thing because it could set you on the right track for the right job early on in your life.
And that's really what we hope is we have about an equal number of students that come in thinking they want to do something and then realizing 2 terms later, no, they don't. And students who come in going, I have no idea what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, great, then let's set up a plan for you to be able to figure that out. And so for students like that, it'll look like, for the first term or 2, we're going to help facilitate. Part of that's just helping you identify who to talk to, coaching you on how to approach them, but facilitate just meetings where you might Skype with alumni. What do you do? How did you get there? What does that look like? And you'll see it. You can, when you talk to students and they talk to someone, it's like, oh my God, I didn't even know that was a job. Like, I didn't know that was a thing. You can do that. And once you see that passion, just the path becomes clear.
So what are the career outcomes for students in this program?
So our career outcomes, generally with the specialty masters, the metric we use is 6 months post-graduation, what the job placement looks like. We're above 90% in MMS. Average salary last year was in the mid-60s. This year it is trending upwards a good amount, which is great to see. Top placement industries are finance and consulting are the 2, which are generally top ones across Fuqua in general. Marketing is up there. Tech takes a chunk of those. In terms of locations, it's all over the country and internationally. In terms of domestic placements, the Northeast is the highest. So
makes sense.
Yeah, New York is a big piece of that. But we place all over.
And I saw your numbers, and what's 47% of the students are female.
Yeah.
So you almost got gender parity there. Yeah.
We absolutely do. This year, the mark looks like we're going to be at 50% again. I would like to say that we have figured out, a special sauce to getting the kind of diversity across multiple dimensions we want. Realistically, we built these programs the way we thought they should be built, and the gender parity is just happening, which has been a wonderful thing to see and something that we've been very proud of.
Now, Jeremy, let me ask you a question because I know that this is going to be on people's minds, okay? You mentioned your own student debt. So how much does a student have to pay to do the program, and do you offer scholarships?
So all the exact numbers are online, and
yes.
if I was clever, I would know the exact number that next year is going to be. So we'll say high 50s, okay. Give or take. Some scholarships are available. It's not hugely widespread. That said, financial aid is very easily accessible. Fuqua has partnered with multiple partners, and so most of our students, not uncommon to leave with debt. The ROI tends to be very quick in terms of being able to pay that back.
And do you see this degree as an alternative to an MBA, an early alternative, or do you see the MBA as something you may want to still pursue, let's say 5 years down the road after this?
So that is probably the number one question we get. And the answer is not an alternative. It could be an alternative for some people, but it's generally very much not. And the reason is, what this program is set up to do is set you up before you start your first job. I think one of the undervalued elements to an MBA from people outside of the MBA world is when students from just all sorts of backgrounds come together with about 5 years of experience, what you hear in the classroom and the perspective through which you as an individual hear the content is fundamentally different than when you were exposed to it with just an academic background.
Right.
So what this is really doing is setting you up with the tools to be successful in those first jobs you have. But in a lot of cases, once you hit that year 5, if you're looking for a transition, the MBA is what can get you there. And all these concepts and ideas, it's just going to come through a much richer lens at that point. And so it's going to give you something very different. We actually had a student this year that took our MMS program about 4 or 5 years ago and is now completing his MBA program. And so I reached out to him with this exact question, and the answer was no. This jump-started me in the career, the MBA is now allowing me to pivot now that I know exactly where I want to go 5 years out.
Okay, great. Now, the other degree we want to really talk about in depth as well is your degree in business analytics. So that's called your master's in quantitative management.
You got it.
Why didn't you just call it business analytics? I mean, isn't a friendlier name than quantitative management, which can scare
MQM just
away?
rolls off the tongue. It's the same forward and backwards. MQM, it's beautiful.
Okay.
We have now added the business analytics to the end of that.
I've seen that online, indeed.
Yeah, so we have differentiated between the residency one, which is our pre-experiential program, versus our online one, which is more experienced applicants. And so now the residency is technically known as MQMBA, but around here we'll just still call it MQM.
Okay, you want to add to the acronym, huh?
We were told to add to the acronym.
Make it a little more confounding.
That's right.
And this degree is for what kind of people? Who's best suited to pursue this degree?
So MQM is not going to be the breadth candidates. MQM is really going to be for students that know functionally they want to start using data to solve business problems. So if you're looking, if we have candidates, and we have some excellent candidates that don't quite know what they want to do, we'll actually recommend MMS for them as the better fit. But students that know whether that can look like traditionally STEM backgrounds, whether it looks like a business or an econ background with the more quantitative pieces, but recognizing that where they want to be, at least in the first part of their career, is using data in really the new ways that it's being used and be at that leading edge of the transformation we've seen. That's who should enter the program. We designed the program. MQM was one of the first, it wasn't the first, one of the first to really build the program from the ground up, not as data science for data science's sake. A lot of the programs before ours came out of traditional either stats or comp sci or math departments. We built ours, and we heard this from our stakeholders and from folks in industry. The issue was that people knew the data science, but people don't really care about the data science in industry. They care about business questions. And so they just care about the data science to the extent it can solve those business questions. So we built this program with that in mind, of really trying to hit that sweet spot of, we're incorporating the data science to the degree it can help us answer these questions. And students that find that path interesting, that they want to come here.
Okay, now there was a recent GMAC study, and it showed that interest in this degree is at an all-time record high. There was an even more recent employer survey which showed that the demand for these students is higher than for any other specialty masters, even the old standbys of finance and accounting right now. Why is this so hot?
So yes, we've seen this on the demand side. We've seen this on the career side. We had ambitious expectations. They've been blown out of the water. Our first year, for instance, we had planned on having, we expected about 50 students. We had a full 140 that first year.
Wow.
Because of the number of applications. And I think the reason
Jeremy,
is—
that was when? What was your first year?
So we're in the end of our second year right now. So graduation is Friday. So two things are driving that. One is just data science in general. It's only been in the past 10 years or so that we've had a convergence of events that have caused this to become such a big thing. The first is computing power has become dirt cheap. With cloud setups like Amazon Web Services, I can set up an enterprise strength database in an afternoon, just paying some money, where 20 years ago that wasn't the case. So because it's so cheap to actually run algorithms, and the other piece that's happened in the last 20 years, data is everywhere. As someone who's come up the journalism ranks, the ability to search for news articles, you no longer have to get the microfilm out. You can do things now that you could never do. And so you take those two components, and just within the last 10 years or so, companies are now recognizing this is now at a scale that any company, any size, can start putting these two things together. And so
Exactly.
you're seeing there's no company that I have seen that has really put data science in and analytics in throughout their organization to the degree that they would be considered an endpoint. There's still almost every function, including and especially HR, for instance, can be doing this. And what data is and how it can be used, we're still figuring that out. So you're seeing this.
Yeah. And I'd say that, the central challenge for almost every organization today is digital transformation. And many companies, particularly in legacy industries, are in the early stages of the journey, and they really need smart, talented people who are trained in looking at that data, harnessing it, and making it available for decision-making purposes, right?
You've absolutely nailed it. I think one of the things for anyone watching that said, I wonder what digital transformation means. Yeah, no, that's right. Even from company to company, what that means is different. But what it really means is recognizing that almost everything is data. Can we change our perception from not just data is a thing over here that helps us, get our inventory aligned, but can we think of every way that we could be gathering and using data, whether that means becoming more efficient or whether that means potentially selling that data, using that data to sell our products. It is transforming how you as a company interact with data. And it is, everyone's struggling with that because in a lot of ways, we don't know the answer yet.
Right.
That every day you're seeing a new case study that makes you go, oh yeah, that's really clever. That you could use data to exactly do that.
And basically what's happened is that, mainstream industry has seen what a data-driven company can do and what disruption it can cause, as in Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Netflix, and they got to get on board.
And those are traditionally digital companies that their product is digital.
Exactly.
When you start looking at, just traditionally the most undigital companies that exist. So take a train company, like literally a company that makes trains.
GE locomotives.
Perfect. You're already seeing digital transformations there. If you start recognizing that data can help you build the things more efficiently, help you predict when they're going to fail, help you fix them before they fail, start helping you understand who is riding on your trains, where they're going. This suddenly becomes a world that if you can actually know everything that a train interacts with, there's so much Just imagine predicting a recession inside of, say the US. Well, if I can start seeing that there's a reduction in the amount of cargo being passed, well, wait, could I actually use that to start, could I sell that insight? What are all the ways that this is happening? That's what we're really talking about. And that's what we're really seeing, that this transformation where it's become so big, the digital companies kind of have their finger on the pulse, but they're just a tiny, even though, in the news, they get a larger proportion of the press. Of
course they do, yeah.
Of course, but they're just a small part of what consists of industry. And that's what we're seeing really across the board.
Now, Jeremy, you mentioned the R word, the dreaded R word, recession, okay? So I just want to make a point about getting a master's degree, because I'm a real believer in graduate degrees. Years ago, a college degree used to be table stakes, and it's just not enough anymore. And you look at the statistics, and a master's degree makes you more recession-proof than you otherwise would be. So it's not only gaining access to jobs you might otherwise not be able to get. When a recession comes, it makes you far more likely not to be kicked out on the street.
That is exactly right. Kind of for the two different programs, it's actually for two different reasons. For something like a data science, or where you really have the specialized skill, you're just better at the skill. So when they're just, deciding who to let go, you're ahead of everybody else. And for the broader one, it's really when you're looking at who you need, and especially in a recession, you do not have any time to develop your talent. Like, they have to be hitting right away. And so that that understanding that people with that 1-year master's are going to be able to do that, when you compare candidates, that just absolutely stands out. And I agree with you that when you're looking at who do we, for people that already have jobs, who do we get rid of? You don't look for the people with the masters first.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So you're going to graduate 140 out of this class. I know the demand is so high, you're going to increase your enrollment next year. What are you going to go to?
Around 240-ish.
Wow. You're going to go up by 100 because
give or take.
So great. And
Yeah,
I'm assuming that obviously the applicant pool is really expanding as well for this program.
No, that's right. That the demand for this program we had ambitious expectations. It's blown that out of the water. We're going to have over 2,000 applicants for the year coming up. From all over the world, the caliber looking at this program has been incredible. What we realized, that number, which will basically be 3 sections for us, that's always been the sweet spot for us. That's always been the kind of long-term goal, that if we can hit that. One of the really ways the MQM program differentiates itself, even among other business schools that have this program, is that we have tracks that each student gets accepted either into finance, forensics, marketing, or strategy, where besides the data science, besides the business communication, they do a deep dive into the types of questions that are being answered in their functional track. Mm-hmm. And so what's great about this program is, even though you're in a larger class, your track itself is about 60 people. And so you still have this very small class feel and the small cohort feel, but we have now the resources that are supported by a larger program, which is always where we wanted to be. It was the scale that we felt we'd be able to deliver everything that we wanted to deliver.
And your class profile right now for the program is 24 years of age is the average age. 1.6 years is the average work experience. You've got 42% women and people from 27 different countries represented in this class.
Yep, and it's the same as MMS, that we have a bit of a right tail. There's a few students with more experience. The modal student has 0. Most of our students are coming directly out of undergrad. Gender parity, again, I believe the year coming. So first year we had 60% female. This year we went to 42. Next year we're targeting more in the mid to high 50s again. Mm-hmm. So we really have a great diverse applicant pool all over the world. We're seeing candidates come in. And so we're getting really across just about every dimension, we're getting the students we hoped we would get for this, of just different backgrounds, different majors, different desire for what they want to get out of it. And part of that is through the different functional tracks that we're seeing. It's hard to overstate how much our cohorts have left saying, this is my family. And we've seen it this year, and we've seen it with our alumni from last year, how much they just feel invested in this program.
Okay, I'm a poet. I know you're a quant. You have a PhD in economics from UNC. Can a poet stomach the quant in this program?
So if they have absolutely no quant background, we would probably say this is probably going to be too much of a jump for you. If they have never taken any kind of advanced math, haven't taken a calculus class, haven't taken a stats class, that would admittedly be a heavy lift. That said, it's not the case that we need all of our students to be engineers. Again, being a recovering engineer, those are my people. But really, if you have some quant background, if you've taken a calculus class, if you've taken a stats class, if you've taken some comp sci a class or two, you don't have to be great at any of those. All we want to see is some indication. We don't want to bring anyone in who's not going to be successful. We want to make sure that you're going to be successful. And so we just want to feel comfortable that, okay, you've had some quant, you've been successful in that, great. For the most part, we don't expect you to have any prior knowledge. Just we feel comfortable that you have the inclinations to be successful.
Exactly. And now, Jeremy, without making my eyes glaze over, give us the titles of some of the courses in the quant program.
Let me tell you. So really, every term, there's three types of classes we have. The first is what you would expect in a more traditional data science program. So things like machine learning, data infrastructure, data visualization. As a quant, that's where I get particularly excited. But in order to prevent you from glazing over, I'll switch to the other two.
I'm cool with data visualization. I like that.
Okay, yeah, that is actually where the art comes in. So that actually works. So that's one. The second is something that looks like a business communications. So it can be BizCom, it can be navigating organizations. You'd be surprised at the number of folks in the industry that when I'm describing the program, that's when they kind of get on the edge of their seat because what they've seen consistently is that if you have someone with just a straight data science background, put them in front of a senior manager who asks, wait, why should I do this? And after 30 minutes of statistical jargon, they're kicked out of the office.
Right. You're
really
not training geeks. You're not training, you're training translators. Right.
Bingo. That's exactly right. And then the last type of class are those track classes where they have that functional dive. So in marketing, for instance, it's looking at digital marketing, it's looking at pricing, it's looking at market intel. So that when they come out, not only do they have the breadth of what data science is and how to use it, they're able to translate it and they understand the questions for the track they're in. Which
now, and do you have experiential learning in this program as well?
We do. So a hallmark of the MQM program is in the last term, every student participates in a capstone project, where in teams of 4 or 5, and teams run throughout everything at Fuqua. So you'll be in a team, one team your first 3 terms, another team your last 2 terms. With your team, you will be given a project, so an experiential learning project with a client. And so there will be data use agreements, there will be real data. Some of these, I'll say, can have, not to oversell it too much, but life and death implications. So to give you an idea, we do a lot of work with a partner healthcare institution. There have been some things we have looked at which legitimately was asking the question, who do we think has a higher probability of surviving a certain procedure based on historically what's happened in the past? Recently, we've worked on surgery scheduling in the healthcare system, which I am quite sure best business practices are not always implemented. And it's not uncommon when you're scheduling surgeries to say, about how long do you think that'll take? And the doctor will say, 3 hours. And so you schedule that, but there's not a lot of looking backwards and saying, well, wait a minute, for certain types of patients, do we tend to see different amounts of time? Can we schedule these in a more optimal way? And if you're talking an extra surgery a day, an extra surgery a week, you're legitimately talking about potentially, it's not saving someone's life, bettering someone's life with the resources you have right now. And we really push for projects that are not only track specific, but really the outcomes matter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I noticed your mid-80 GMAT range on this program is 640 to 750. The mid-80 range on the Master's in Management Studies is 560 to 740. So there you have it.
No, and that's right. And that.
What about the career outcomes for this one?
Career outcomes for MQM have, again, we had high expectations for ourselves, and this is mostly a credit to the students. It has exceeded our expectations. So last year at 6 months out, we were at 97% placement. Average salary last year was 80, with an additional about 10,000 bonus, with that sign-on bonus.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep. This year we're tracking even higher than that, which is fantastic. Jobs are, you name the Fortune 100, and there's a good chance that we're hooked in there. All the big 4, we're hitting. McKinsey is in there, tech companies, Amazon, Intel. It's just been an amazing outcome.
Yeah, companies can't get enough of well-trained people from really good schools with this degree.
And what's neat is that we're hearing from our alumni, it's funny when you have students come in the degree, the belief will be more data science, more data science, more data science. And we built the program to say, well, wait, Data scientists are actually out there. That's
Right.
not the skill. And
That's right.
we're hearing from our alumni over and over, the class that was most valuable, the BizCom class, the navigating organizations class. That's the thing that has actually made me something that just doesn't exist right now.
Exactly. Well, that's good. We have a lot of questions, Jeremy.
Okay.
And before we start, I want to remind Meredith, if Meredith is still out there, that I would love to send you a mug. Just send me your address. You could do it in the Q&A thing, so it's not in the chat box where everyone sees it. Or you can just email me at Byrne, BYRNE 332@gmail.com, and I will put a mug in the mail for you.
And I appreciate that.
One is on your way as well. So, okay. Anna asks, and this is in relationship to the management studies program, is it recommended for people who have already job experience? So I wonder, in terms of that range, and yes, you don't have to have, but what's the high end of the range in terms of work experience coming to that program?
So 1 to 2 is completely, not just completely welcomed, but a lot of times we'll see students do exactly what I talked about, that they'll get a job and realize a year or two in, oh no, this isn't what I wanted. They're perfectly positioned to come into the MMS program. After 2 is where there needs to be a really open discussion with the candidate. And when I say open discussion, what a lot of people don't know coming out of undergrad is at top business schools, the admissions process, you are not a number. They will know your name, they know who you are, they will be your advocate, and they'll be very honest with you about what makes sense and what doesn't. But once you're past that 2-year mark, the natural question is, would it make sense for you to wait another 2 years and get an MBA? Right. And so that's going to really dive into what are your goals, what are you hoping to get out of this? And if it does seem to align, then it's not outside the realm of possibility. And that's why when our age skews right a little bit, it's because there's always a few candidates that it really makes sense for where they are and where they want to be.
I mean, the other thing is some people have work experience that's really in business and they start to learn the language of business in them. Other people have work experience where you're really removed from the language of business. You don't know what an income statement is versus a balance sheet. You don't know what I said before about return on equity or return on investment. You don't know what debt is and what role it plays in profitability. I mean, really basic stuff that you'll learn in the management program. And if you're that far behind and you're working in some sales job or something, and you want more out of your life, you can probably be a bit older, I'm assuming, and get accepted, right?
That's right. The real question, we really try to work with you to figure out, is this the thing that'll get you where you want to go, or does it make sense to get the MBA? And you're absolutely right that for some students, even with the additional years, that scenario would exactly start making sense.
Now here's someone who's a little bit older, maybe a lot older. And I think he's a he, says, yes, it's Ross. So Ross says he's got about 15 years of experience in business analytics, but it's from the real technical side, like with SAP and SAS. What would a major contribution to him be in this program? Well, number one, I'm assuming he's too old for this particular program, right?
Yeah, more than likely, yeah. Well, definitely, yes.
Yes.
I feel comfortable saying yes.
Yeah, me too. So I don't know. I mean, are there other options for him who...
Yeah, there are. There's actually a lot of programs for someone with that background. For instance, Weekend Executive MBA program, his background is a large amount of the students, not a majority, but a mode. There's definitely a positive mode of individuals that came from the more technical side, whether that's straight engineering, whether that's IT, whether that's a more just traditional data science side. And they now realize that they want to take that and build it into, whether it's management, whether it's becoming a chief data and analytics officer, but something that really requires them to get that deeper business knowledge and to understand it more. That's where I would say look for some of the programs that are not residential, that you can do on the weekends, that you can do at nights, that you can even do online. Look for those type of programs. See if it matches where you want to go and the skills you need. And in a case like that, you keep getting your paycheck, which is going to be a good thing, but you can also immediately start getting the knowledge that you can bring to your company. And John, I think you've done a WebEx before, I believe, on some of the benefits of an online and who it might cater to, that I think would probably fit in this case.
Yes, indeed. Exactly. That's a really good suggestion. Thank you.
But technically, look at our Weekend Executive MBA program first.
That's right. Because you can always specialize and dive deep in an MBA program in the second year, or if it's a part-time or online in the second half of the program. Okay, here's a question from someone who is a research analyst in the equities market. He's a chartered accountant. He's from India. And he wonders, he's got 2 years of experience.
Okay.
He wonders, does he have a shot at the quantitative management program?
Absolutely. Where he would have a very strong shot is in our forensics track. And specifically, our forensics track, that is our most, in terms of all the tracks, that's I'll say the most specific track, in the sense of students need to know that they want to go into forensics. In particular, the more quantitative side of accounting is what I mean when I say forensics. So you're going to be talking about fraud issues. You're going to be talking about risk management throughout a company. For students that demonstrate that, yeah, this is what they want to do, that program is built for them. And from his background alone, if he wants to continue down the path he's in, it's just a natural fit for forensics, and the 2 years of experience is completely aligned with what we would expect in that case. If you wanted to pivot to another one, then what we would look for in admissions is really understanding, what his drivers are in terms of that pivot, whether it makes sense with what we're offering, and whether we can get him there or not.
Right. The other thing we should point out is that the quant program is STEM designated, right?
Yes.
Okay,
so
that's a really important distinction for an international student who wants to come and study in the United States.
It is. Our MQM residency program, so the one we've been talking about, it's a 10-month program, but with the STEM extension, you're eligible to work for 3 years in the United States, as long as you're working in a field or in a job that is related to your coursework. And that has been extremely helpful, partially just because it takes that amount of time in this sphere to really get to the point that you can be running a group. And so that's been really important for us and really important for our students.
Yeah, because I think there are a lot of international students who worry about the H-1B visa, and rightly so. This is one way around that handicap, and it's an important distinction.
It is, and it's not only you get the 3 years, but you also get multiple years to apply for the H-1. So
Right.
you significantly increase the likelihood that you would actually be able to get it.
Yeah, and I should also point out, because I know this for a fact, that Duke has a certificate in its full-time MBA program that is STEM designated as well. So people who go to Fuqua and who take this specialization, of course it's a quant specialization, it has to be, you would also be STEM designated as well. We have a question from someone who has 7 years of work experience in banking and in the finance industry. He's currently in the US on a dependent visa with no work permit. He's interested in the master's from the US, which falls under STEM. What would be the best option for him, do you think? Would it be the MBA with the STEM designation?
It would, for where he is in his career. One of the reasons, in case anyone watching this is wondering why there tends to be an age, not cutoff, but recommendation piece, it really is having experience in the workplace causes a different dynamic in the classroom. And so you'll want to be surrounded by people that are coming through that same lens that you've experienced. And so with 7 years, MBA is going to be the appropriate piece. And we're seeing now Fuqua, one of the first, we're seeing a few more now propagate, but having that STEM designation for the particular certificate we have within the MBA, so it's not all MBA students, that has been providing a lot of value for those students.
Right. And this is also from another international student. I'm assuming that if you do the master's in management, obviously that is not STEM designated. So that may make it a little more difficult for you to land a job in the United States, even though it would be great preparation for work. So I would think that you would be more inclined to do the quant program, right?
Yes, we are looking at whether there's ways to incorporate more quant in MMS, and we're not there yet, but we're seeing if that's a possibility. As it stands right now, then yes, I will say that our international students have had good success in the MMS program. We haven't seen we haven't seen a significant change,
Right.
with placements, and so employers are still positive, and there is still the you do still have the year of the H1 lottery to try to hit to stay longer.
Indeed. So we have someone who doesn't have an undergraduate degree,
Okay.
but in fact has 5 years of management experience. Is a person like that, do they have a shot at any of these programs, or because they lack an undergraduate degree, are they no chance?
They do, but it would be a very basically I would need a lot more information.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
In general, we would say an undergrad degree is what we're looking for. If where, depending on what else they have, what really academic signals they have, for us it's really finding the right fit for the student and making sure they can be successful. So there would need to be a lot of other signals that in the academic side they could be successful, and that would be there would be a lift, not impossible, but realistically a pretty heavy lift. It's hard to figure out what replaces that academic side.
Right. Here's another question from someone who has worked for 3 years. He's deputy manager of a consultancy, but works in the field of civil engineering. He wants to go and get a master's, and he's wondering what would be the best option, an MBA or a specialized master's.
And you're right.
This gets us right back to where we were earlier about, okay, are any of these degrees an alternative to an MBA?
That's right. And the 3 years is right at that point that we would start going, And in this case, I say the answer is actually pretty easy in this case. If they're leaning towards they really want to go into the more data science side of things, I'd say it's MQM. If they are deciding they want to go into management, then I would say it's the MBA. That answer is going to be solely dependent on what they want to do, say 5 years from now.
Right. Yep. And someone asks if they have questions later on, can they email you, Jeremy?
Why, yes. And our admissions team, they can also email, whose email is something. admissions-info at fuqua.duke.edu.
Right. Now, someone asked, and this is related to what we said earlier, is the Duke MBA program STEM designated? And it's not, but there's a specialty within it that is.
That's right.
If you do that specialty, you will get a certificate in, is it quantitative science or something like that, right?
Yes. So we have 4 or 5 certificate programs inside of our MBA. So we've had, for instance, health sector management, and our newest one is known as MSTEM, which is science and technology are going to be 2 of those letters. And then M is another one.
Close enough, Jeremy.
Yeah, well, MSTEM is such a great acronym that's all I remember at this point. And what that basically is as you pick your electives, and all of our certificates work this way. If you pick ones that are really focused on, in this case, the more quantitatively rigorous classes, so that you end up taking, it's around 8 deep quantitative classes, well, you're then going to come out with this much deeper quantitative background. And so for the students that have done that and have gotten that certificate, that's the piece that is actually STEM certified. Okay,
we're running out of time. We have a bunch of other questions.
Wonderful.
But I got to do this question because this person, like me, is a political science major. Unlike me, he's worked in retail management for around 10 years.
Okay.
And he's also taught music. So it's, you know, I love music. I consider it one of life's greatest benefits.
We need to get a beer
Imagine
sometime.
living without music, incidentally, and having been a political science major. So his question is, how would his work experience be viewed 10 years in retail management and in teaching? And obviously, the MBA degree is what he wants.
Oh, so with an MBA degree, he's definitely in that world. I would say for one of the executive MBA programs, which by the way is the same underlying degree at Fuqua. Just the program format is different. For something like our weekend executive program or our global executive programs, that fit is completely aligned with, it sounds strange to say, no, that background is very aligned with other students. It actually is. we have a really diverse work experience in those programs. For daytime, it would be a bit of a heavier lift. Just because of 10 years of experience, it's getting towards the right tail of where we build that cohort. But if you look across programs, there's absolutely a home there.
Great. Jeremy, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much. I can't believe the time is already gone. And for all of you who stood with us, thank you for listening and paying attention. I hope this is helpful to you. We will have this video produced on our site with an edited transcript so that you can read as well shortly. Otherwise, I hope we answered the question, is a specialized master's degree right for you? It's not for me, I'm too old.
Me too.
But I think it's a really valuable degree for people, and the career outcomes are spectacular, and it sets you on the right path to make a meaningful contribution in the world of work. So Jeremy, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
And do look into the Duke Fuqua programs. You can go to their website and check out all the details on these two programs. You also have a few others you might be interested in. Meantime, this is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.